Purham and Associates. For more information, go to www.rpurham.com. Hey, good day to you all. Welcome to Purham and Associates. I'm your host, Randy Purham. Hey, got a very special treat for you all today. Got Senator John Cornyn with us today, and we're gonna get into it. We're gonna do a deep dive into some stuff. So, without further ado, he was in 2020. Texas overwhelmingly reelected Senator John Cornyn to represent them for a fourth term in the U.S. Senate. Since he was first elected in 2002, Senator Cornyn has earned a national reputation as an articulate and powerful voice for Texas values in Washington. Senator Cornyn, a San Antonio native, strongly believes that we need more Texas solutions in Washington, which is why he consistently fights to bring the Lone Star State's common sense solutions to the federal level. He is committed to strengthening our national defense, securing our borders, repairing our broken immigration system, and fostering economic development by keeping taxes low, reducing federal spending, and fighting job-killing regulations from Washington bureaucrats. Senator Cornyn is also a tireless advocate for the Texas military personnel, veterans, and their families, and he has fought, year after year to provide these brave Americans with greater support, care, and benefits. Senator Cornyn serves on the Senate Finance, Intelligence, and Judiciary committees, where he helps craft legislation on behalf of more than 30 million Texans. From 2013 and 2018, Senator Cornyn was chosen by his colleagues to serve as the whip, the second highest ranking position in the Senate Republican Conference. Senator Cornyn has served the people of Texas for nearly 4 decades, first as a district judge and later as a member of the Texas Supreme Court and Texas Attorney General. He received his undergraduate degree from Trinity University, his law degree from St. Mary's School of Law, and his LLM from the University of Virginia Law School. Senator Cornyn is married to his wife Sandy, and married his wife to Sandy in 1979, and they have 2 grown daughters. Ladies and gentlemen, introducing the some and presenting the other, Senator John Cornyn. Good afternoon, Senator. How are you today?
Hey, Randy. Good to be with you. I'm doing great.
Absolutely. Thank you for taking the time to be here. I want to jump right into the big beautiful bill. You know, that is kind of like the hot button issue right now, given that we're getting ready to head into the midterm elections here, and you're on the ballot this year as well for that. So, talk to us about you being the leadership of the Texas delegation and getting the big beautiful bill passed and bringing so I guess you could say some commodities back to Texas, such as the Operation Lone Star reimbursement and the Doge cuts.
Well, this was the first big step in advancing President Trump's agenda and the agenda that we ran on in November of last year that resulted in majorities in both the House and the Senate. So with that comes a responsibility to actually get the work done. And we took some major steps doing that this last week by passing the big beautiful bill, as it's called, and then more recently the rescissions package, which hopefully is the first step toward reclaiming some fiscal responsibility. But the big beautiful bill has so many different pieces, and I think the Democrats are hoping that they can mislead the public about the contents of the bill. But maybe the most significant thing up front that it did was avoid a multi-trillion-dollar tax increase, one that would have resulted in the average Texas family of seeing about a $3,000 increase in their taxes per year. but it did a number of other important things. After 4 years of Biden's open border policies, it dedicated about $170 billion toward recruitment and training and of ICE personnel, and also to build the detention facilities, which are an important part of President Trump's determination to actually bring security to the borders. And we've seen dramatically improved numbers there, which demonstrates that we really didn't need new laws. We just needed a new president who believed in enforcing the law. But the big, beautiful bill has so many other pieces to it, keeping the president's commitment to cut taxes on tips and overtime, which is a true middle-class tax decrease. And of course, the Democrats had no alternative to offer other than a massive multi-trillion-dollar tax increase. All they do is criticize what we did, but they have really nothing to offer themselves other than higher taxes and bigger government. And obviously, President Trump and Republicans got a mandate to pass this bill and to make big progress at the border in rebuilding our national security, peace through strength, and then, of course, making sure that taxes remain low after 4 years of high inflation. The worst thing that we could have done is to allow a tax increase on 62% of taxpayers on top of 40-year high inflation, where everybody is paying already a hidden thanks to President Biden's massive spending policies, which result in roughly 20% increase in the cost of everything.
Yeah, you're absolutely right about that, Senator. And I keep hearing, especially down here in Austin, people running around about Medicare and Medicaid and the cuts to that. I'm like, there's no cuts to Medicaid or Medicare. What are you talking about? And so it's just the misinformation campaign is very large, and I'm glad that the Republicans are coming back and they're actually cleaning that up, and because otherwise it's crazy. Mm-hmm. Go ahead, sir.
Randy, since you mentioned Medicaid, let me just mention that one of the most important things we did with regard to the safety net program, which is important for many Texans who don't meet the income thresholds in order to get commercial insurance or buy insurance on their own. So they need this safety net. But what happened with the expansion of Obamacare, there were millions of young able-bodied adults who were sitting on the couch playing video games and not contributing to their families and their own support. So we said, if you're an able-bodied adult, you need to work if you're going to qualify for Medicaid. And chances are, if you do work, you're not going to meet the low-income requirements or thresholds in order to qualify. You'll be able to qualify for employer-provided insurance. So there's so much misinformation out there, and it's going to take the campaigns from now to the midterms in 2026, I think, to be able to drive that message home.
Exactly. Yes. And speaking of midterms and elections and campaigns, what are your thoughts on Republicans in Texas that may not come out to vote in the midterms, and part of what happened in not only the Texas legislature, but given the overall political climate as we see it right now? What is some, I guess you could say, advice that you would give to the candidates and to the incumbents that are getting ready to gear up their campaigns out there?
Well, we need to run a vigorous midterm election. As you know, without President Trump on the ballot, chances are the turnout is going to be smaller than it was in the presidential election in 2024. But it's the folks who show up who have a voice in the policies and of the government, both at the local level and at the federal level. So I'm going to be on the ballot, and I'm certainly going to be working as hard as I can to make sure that we inform people about the importance of getting out to vote first in the primary on March the 3rd, and the run up to the primary with early voting, and then, of course, then in November of 2026. And I think one of the more recent developments is it looks like Governor Abbott is going to have a redrawing of the congressional lines with the hope of taking advantage of some of President Trump's popularity to carve out a couple more Republican districts in Texas. So there's going to be a lot of action on the ballot on March the 3rd and then later on in November of 2026.
Yeah, absolutely. And a follow up to that, sir, is a lot of Republicans here in Texas, the voters, anyways. There's a small block, I guess you could say, or a large block, depending on how you want to look at it. They're wanting you out of office and replaced with someone else and what have you. What is your, I guess you could say, your old school pitch, if you will, your elevator pitch to the voters that that they should keep you or reelect you back to the Senate?
Well, the most important thing, I think, in terms of the state is to have somebody on the ballot after the primary who can actually win the general election. If the Attorney General, who's currently running in the primary, were to be the nominee, public polls show him losing the general election. As you know, we fought long and hard for many years to elect Republicans and keep Texas red, and it would be a tragedy if we nominate the wrong person in the primary to lose that general election, which would be the first time since 1994 that a Democrat could be elected. So I think the president certainly understands that. I've supported President Trump 99.2% of the time. And so there are people who are misleading the public to make them think that I'm not supportive of President Trump. I certainly am, and I have been during his first term and now in his second term. And we worked hand in glove together to pass the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act in 2017 and to confirm well over 300 federal judges, including the 3 new members of the U.S. Supreme Court. So there's a lot more to say, but I think losing this Senate seat in 2026 would be harmful to President Trump's agenda. And the truth is, I'm a solid supporter of President Trump and his policies.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. And speaking of President Trump, I believe that you're attending, or there's a dinner at the White House this evening that you're supposed to be attending to.
President Trump is a very gracious host. He likes entertaining, and so he's invited a number of Republican senators to the White House tonight to break bread and to celebrate the passage of the One Big Beautiful Bill. And so I'm looking forward to that and being with him and the First Lady and some of my colleagues and celebrating our success. But the truth is, we're just getting started, as the president has made clear, and he expects to use all 4 years of this term, not just the first 6 months, in accomplishing the agenda he ran and won on in November of last year.
Yeah, absolutely. That's good. I wonder if it's a prime rib on the menu tonight. But one last question for you, Senator. When after the election, so say you win, what is some of the things that you're hoping to bring back to the Senate in the next term?
Well, I've always been taking great pride in representing 31 million Texans and been successful working with the administration and doing important things. As you know, part of the Big Beautiful Bill is a roughly $11 billion reimbursement to the state for money spent on the border. That Operation Lone Star was expensive, but it was a state initiative at state taxpayer expense because the Biden administration refused to enforce the law. Yeah. So working with Governor Abbott, we've got that done as part of the bill, and we look forward to celebrating that soon at the White House. We're also working hard to bring back the Discovery shuttle to Houston, which is head of the headquarters for the human space flight at the Johnson Space Center. Mm-hmm. But there's so much that we need to do, and part of it, I think, what we need to do, and the president's made clear, is that getting our fiscal house in order, we couldn't do it all in one big bite. But we did get started, and we're going to continue to do that as we try to grow the economy, make energy more affordable, remove some of the shackles of overregulation from small businesses so they can thrive. And now with the tax provisions in the One Big Beautiful Bill, I think you'll see a liberation of the private sector and small businesses that's going to create a great booming economy and greater opportunity for all Texans.
Awesome, awesome, sir. Thank you for that. Any final thoughts, and tell people where they can follow you and support you, sir.
Well, Randy, thanks for having me on, and thank you for your service to our country. And as you mentioned at the outset, my support for our veterans is unshakable. I grew up in an Air Force family, so this is personal to me. And but we need more people to participate in the process and to vote in that primary on March the 3rd, because we can't take the progress that Texas has made and progress that the country has made for granted, because I guarantee the activists like AOC and this new socialist mayor candidate in New York, the Democratic Party has simply lost their mind, and they want to destroy all of the great advances that we've made as a country and as a people. We are still the envy of the world, and Texas is the envy of the nation. So we need to fight to keep that done, and that's you only do that when you by getting out and casting your vote. So that's very important.
Yes, absolutely. All right, Senator, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. Good luck out there on the trail. Yes, absolutely. And more than welcome to come back anytime and shoot off some messages or give us an update on what's going on out there.
We'll see you soon, okay?
Absolutely, sir. Take care. God bless.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, Senator John Cornyn. We got a uphill battle in front of us, ladies and gentlemen, and to his point, we have to get out there to vote. If we want to keep this country, if we want to keep this nation intact, we got a lot of crazies out there, and on the other side of the crazies is there's crazy people that support these crazies. So we gotta combat these the crazies at the end of the day, and by doing so, we have to get presidential-like numbers at the polls again, to drown out, to quell down, the uprising of the crazy talk and these candidates that's coming along. It is utterly amazing to me as I've been watching different interviews, podcasts, and little clips here and there. There is this movement among the younger crowd that they actually believe that socialism is a good thing. And it's just mind blowing that you got candidates that says, okay, I'm gonna run on that, and they're winning. So, ladies and gentlemen, please wake up. Wake up your neighbors, wake up your other family members, and get them out to the polls in March for the primaries, and then right back out again in November of 26 for the elections. You got to get them out there, or if you got to take advantage of early voting, I get it. I hear you. I know. There's this contention about early voting, whatever. The point is, it's available. If it's available and you need to utilize it, utilize it. Use all the tools at your disposal to cast your vote. And so I'm going to say that. But outside of that as well, the other thing that we have to think about too is, who's on the ballot, what's going on with these particular candidates that's on the ballot. I get it. There's a lot of frustration and contention with Senator Cornyn, and then there's frustration and contention with Ken Paxton. There's frustrations with the other candidates, like I think his name is Barrett McNabb. I'm seeking to get these other candidates on the show as well. Their schedules, and it's like who are you? Why should I get on your show? Type of thing. Those conversations are taking place. Whatever. But nonetheless, we have to be vigilant and do our due diligence at the same time, and looking at these candidates and see what they bring to the table, who they are, and their viability against the other side. It's not so much, will they best represent me? It's more so, can they beat the other side? That's the key. Does their message and their platform resonate enough with the voters? Because we have to think about this, ladies and gentlemen. This is one thing that we tend to take for granted, and I'm going to spend a couple minutes on this piece, is that we have a section of voters who believe that as being a Republican in Texas, that we're the only voting bloc that exists. Believe it or not, there's that faction that exists that believe this, and so they think that they control who's going to get elected, and that they have the sole authority to decide the outcome of these elections. That couldn't be further from the truth. If I don't know, but it's that's a total false sense of the reality. The reality is Texas carries actually more independent or swing voters than both Democrats and Republicans combined. So you have that center mass voting bloc, or I should say center, this center right, center moderate voting bloc that's down the middle, and they're coming from all over. They're coming from California, they're coming from Florida, they're coming from different places, and so their politics is not necessarily in alignment with Texas politics. Okay, so you got this voting block of people that are here, and they look at the ballot and they see these people in their commercials and all this jazz, their campaigns and all that stuff, and they're making a decision. They're saying, who best will represent, who best resonate with what I have going on, not with what the Republicans have going on, not with what Democrats got going on. Care less. Don't give a damn. How do these people? How will they represent me? And so they're going to go to the polls and make that decision. Not the Republican Party, not the Democrat Party. These independent voters will. And we have to think about that. We have to look at those dynamics from that lens, okay? And realize that, it's not a pitch of, who's the best Republican. It's more so, who's the best Republican that can actually beat these people. And that could be anybody, however that shapes out. It's very early in the primary process right now. We're here in July, okay, and the filing deadline's in December. So between now and December, or when the window opens in November, there could be a slew of people that put in their name in the ring to run for Senate, for governor. There's actually a few people that's running for governor right now that I met recently. So there's, Congress, U.S. Congress, especially with the redrawing, the redistricting plan, that's going to open up another set of seats. So you're going to have a bunch of people running for those seats as well, because it's going to be an open primary, and if that comes to fruition. So there's a lot going on, ladies and gentlemen, and I really, really encourage you, the listener, the watcher, to step out of your bubble, step out of your silos, and pay attention, because this is a 360, kind of thing that's going on right now in the political landscape, not only in Texas, but at the federal level as well. Just as Senator Cornyn mentioned, the consequences is not just a Senate seat falling to a Democrat in Texas, but it has national implications as well. And I think about that. We got 100 senators in the U.S. Senate. Okay, out of those 100, you have a split, a dead even split, basically. But two of those senators, Murkowski and Collins, Lisa Murkowski and Susan Collins, one out of Alaska, one out of Maine, they are, you could say, anti-Trump as far as his agenda goes, and we've been saying that. So you got to think about, okay, if we already get lost too, in a sense. So J.D. Vance, Vice President Vance, has to come in every time there's a tie, when they do finally agree with something that's going on. He has to come in and break that tie every time. Can we afford to keep having that cycle go on for the next 2 years? Maybe, maybe not. Or the alternative, we lose a seat and he won't even have the option to, come in and be a tiebreaker, because we're going to be one seat short. Now, granted, there are some other Senate seats that are vulnerable coming up in November next year. There are also some House seats that are going to be vulnerable. And the Democrats, with their lack of messaging and everything else that they have going on right now, there is a huge, huge probability that many seats could be flipped, many. And I look at the political landscape at the national level, and I'm seeing all these different little districts that have been traditionally Democrat or traditionally Republican. The ones that's been traditionally Republican are growing in terms of, I guess you could say, population. And the ones that have been traditionally Democrat, they're shrinking in terms of Democrat support. And we see all the national polling in terms of Democrat approval ratings in the dumpster. So there's window opportunity, ladies and gentlemen. You know, here in Austin, Congressional District 35, 37 sits in a nebulous, sits right, center mass of surrounding Republican districts. So there's an opportunity there to take out, Congressman Greg Casari, Congressman Lloyd Doggett. There's that opportunity there. So we have to look at it, and then you go further south. You got Joaquin Castro. He's in jeopardy. There's a bunch of Republicans coming up on there, and then we saw just in 24 the red wave that literally happened down in South Texas. So there's that window of opportunity there as well. And the Democrats that's down there in the Rio Grande Valley, they're like, yeah, we're done with this craziness of the Democrats. So you're a Republican, come in, let me talk to you. That's what's going on. These are the conversations that are happening. And so, you look at the ballot for 26. It is it's going to be an interesting ballot. You got Governor Greg Abbott at the top of the ticket this go around, because this is a gubernatorial election, ladies and gentlemen. And so with the being a gubernatorial election, it also traditionally, and midterms, it's going to be traditionally a low turnout. However, given all the things that's on the ballot, I mean, what I mean by not the people, but on the ballot in terms of kitchen table issues, yet we potentially could see a higher than normal turnout. But with that higher than normal turnout, we have to make sure that we're engaging these voters and getting them educated into what's going on, and they're not going to the ballot emotionally driven versus intellectually driven. So, other than that, folks, I'm gonna jump up out of here. This was a special feature presentation today. Got called up and asked to take this opportunity to talk to Senator Cornyn, and we've been trying to get this scheduled for some months now, actually. So we finally made it happen. So was able to catch up with them and talk offline a little bit there, and then got this going. So, folks, I'll catch you all later. Don't know when. So I'm not even going to say Friday or Monday or whatever. I just don't know. You'll see me when you see me. All right. I will catch y'all later. Take care. God bless. And be safe out there. Ciao, ciao. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for tuning in today. Please be sure to follow, like, subscribe, and share. And go to rpurham.com for more information. See you all soon. Take care. God bless.